Now, the question that I had was, how would I animate a scene where a character had glowing elements to them, glowing and pulsing? So for example, this could be, let's say your character has some sort of alien virus and it's growing and you've got the veins like reaching up their neck and there's energy pulsing through them. Or maybe they've got like a super suit and there's like a line of power cables running through and you want like this energy charge to go vroom, vroom, vroom right through it without having to do a full complex render and having a whole lighting system in there and like this whole big complex thing. How to get something like that to work. So the key here is going to be understanding textures. We don't need to add a complex light system. We don't need to add complex geometry and make things super complicated. It's actually a pretty simple effect to do. Post effect, you can definitely do post effect. The big thing with post effect is what happens if it has to go around a 3D character. So maybe it has to spiral around the arm. So it has to like do a snake pattern around the arm, go through there into a power cannon or something like Samus or Mega Man or something like that. You can definitely do it in post, and sometimes that's going to be nice to do, but it's a lot of extra work, especially when you're doing with 3D space. So how do we do it? Well, let's kind of go over how we can get just that strobing pattern in first. So I'm going to create a polygon plane here, just a flat plane. Okay, so what I'm going to do to create this pattern is I'm going to go into my Hypershade here. And you can do this also in the attribute editor as well. Just go to your Lambert material. But I'm going to go in my Hypershade and I'm going to create a new material. I never like to adjust the default Lambert material because that's the material that gets applied to any new object. So for example, if I make this black and then I create a polygon cylinder, it's going to be black as well. I don't want that. I want that default object to have that default gray. Or you can have it a default red, whatever you want, honestly. But I want that to, in this case, stay the same. So I'm going to create another Lambert right there. I'm going to apply it to the square just by middle mouse dragging and dropping onto the square. And then I'm going to take my color here. I'm going to apply a ramp. So I clicked on the checkerboard pattern here, and I'm going to apply a ramp texture to this right there. A ramp is a gradient. Now you'll notice it doesn't show up in here. Why not? I don't have textures turned on. So in the viewport, I have to hit the 6 key, and now we have our texture. And with a ramp, I will be able to create a gradient. So we can see this. I can adjust that right there. And to create that kind of strobe, essentially what I need to do is create a loop of a gradient. So black to white like this is not going to be enough. I need it to cycle. So I'm going to take the black here, put it in the middle, and then add another white right here at the end, something like that. And let's actually add another black stripe here just to make the black a little wider right there. Something like that. So now we've got this. Great, we've got a stripe. And there's a lot of cool effects you can do here. You can like add waves and really start to create some cool effects right there. But that's really cool right there. We don't want that. We just want a simple strobing effect. Okay, we've got this. How do I get it to move? Okay. The key to this is understanding how textures work in Maya. So in Maya, let's make the Hypershade just a little bit bigger here. You can see this is the node network for a material with a texture. At the far right, we have the surface shader node, the shading group is specifically. So this is essentially the node that connects things to the material right there. So that is a very important node, but we don't typically need to adjust it unless we're adding a displacement map, which is going to add more depth to the object. Aside from that, we don't really touch this too often. We have the material right here. The material is what basically has the properties of the object. Is it going to be plastic? Is it going to be metal? Is it going to be shiny? Is it going to be dull? That's what the material is. It's what is the object made of, not what its color is. It is the base material. And to that, we can attach different things like textures and whatnot to change the properties within. Now, to that, we attached a ramp a ramp texture into the color of the material. The ramp is essentially a gradient, is an image. And that gets placed over top of the object right there. Now, that's pretty much it. It's just an image. What determines how that image is laid onto the object is a combination of your UVs, your U and V map on the object, and the Place 2D texture node here. The Place 2D texture node essentially determines how the texture will be applied in your scene. So to see this a little bit more clearly, let's look at our UVs super quickly here. So I'm going to open up my UV editor by going to UV editor right here. And you can see for this box, or this cube, our UVs are pretty much, they look the same. It's just this square box. And we see our texture here, our ramp, is fitting within this one-to-one space on the UVs. That's how UVs work. You go from 0 to +1, 0 to +1 in U and V directions. And the texture gets laid over top of that. It's like taking a cardboard box, laying it out flat, and then placing a texture on top or a picture on top of it, and then refolding it back up. That's how it essentially works. So it's laid on there. But the way the picture gets laid on is controlled by the Place 2D texture node. What that means is that if I adjust that node, let's make some room here so we can see things. The joy of one monitor, you just never have enough room for anything. So if I take my Place 2D texture node here, what I can do is adjust how that texture is being placed over top of the UV. So we have coverage, translate frame, rotate frame, a whole bunch of things. Let's just take a rotate frame. That's going to be very visual. If I take this, it's going to rotate the image here and apply it in a different angle on the UVs right there. So I can change the direction of this stripe right here. And essentially what I'm doing is I'm just rotating how it gets overlaid on the flattened object right in here. So I can rotate that. I can mirror it if I wanted to. In this case, it's not going to do much. I can repeat it. So this is how you make a texture smaller if you want to have like a grass field and you've got like one big square of grass. As long as it's repeatable, I can just repeat it multiple times here. There we go. So now we've got a pinstripe pattern with one quick gradient. I can even go further like that. Haha. Let's actually turn off selection highlighting here just so we can see this a little bit more clearly. So we've got that. Great. We've got offsets. Offsets allow us to adjust the U and V direction, kind of slide the texture along. So let's actually reset our rotation. So if I take my offset here and push it up, let's do it a different way here. I'm just going to select this. And I'm going to switch my offset here because now I can middle mouse drag. And if I do my V direction, you'll notice that, hey, it slides right there. And boy, that gets very dizzy. Not only that, but then we also can rotate the UVs themselves. So that's the rotate is very similar to a rotate frame. And then we can add some noise in there as well, which can get some really cool patterns in there. So we could do that. And now you can see, ooh, that's kind of cool. I've got this kind of energy field that's moving through this object. Well, let's keep the noise down for now. Let's keep it simple. Right here, just that offset V direction, that's giving me a pulsing pattern. Now let's reduce our repeats down a little bit. We'll go with 2 here. So I've got this going through. All I need to do now is set a key on my offsets. So I'm going to key it here. Let's go to 0. Yeah, it's very Beetlejuicy, exactly. And then I'm just going to go 10 frames later, set a key, and I'm going to move it forward. And then in my graph editor, I'm going to take this, set it to linear, curves, post infinity, cycle with offset. And let's make sure I can view my infinity curves. Show infinity, like that. So that animation that I did on the offset V just keeps on going forever now. Now, as I play through my animation, we've got a pulsing pattern, like that. I can make it slower, I can make it faster, I could make it so that it has a little bit more of a rhythm to it by kind of adding some ease in, ease out right here. Now, let's actually slow it down a little bit here and hit play. Now you see how it kind of shrunk, 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 shrunk. It has that kind of rhythm to it. So I could make something that has a little bit more of a, like a pulse to it. Maybe for a pulse, we'll just not stop it completely here. So it just slows down a little bit. So now we've got that kind of heartbeat pattern. So if you want kind of a veins that are like creeping up and there's the energy pulsing through them, all you have to do is tweak your infinity curve here and you can get that rhythm in there, and you can get a more complex rhythm by making it a little longer. So here we have an energy pulse. Great. Pretty simple, honestly, and I can apply this texture to anything and it'll go on top of it. Nice. So that's honestly the basics of it. With this, the next key is, how do we apply it onto a 3D surface? Right now, we're just applying it to this one little piece of nothing. It's just a plane. That's not hard. How do I apply it to a 3D surface? Well, there's a few different ways you can do it. So let's just take a cube for now. And we're going to use this. And I want to apply this texture, and I want to have it maybe go up and down on this face. I want just this, a strip on this face to have a pulse to it. So I'm just going to add some detail in here. Something like that. And I'm going to select these faces here and assign my material onto that. So I'm going to select those, right click, assign material to selection. Now we've got this pulse going through our object right there. And it kind of creates a cool elevator feeling to it in this case. And we can change the color. Like we could do any colors, any patterns we want with this. But we've got that now. Great. That's really nice. Okay. Let's say I want this stripe to go all the way around the object now. So we're just going to go all the way around. And for some reason, it's not double clicking for me. There we go. I have to use the mouse for that. Assign material to selection. Ah, okay. Hit play. Oh. That's not right. I wanted this stripe to go all the way around, not this. It's going in different directions on different faces. Ugh. That's not good. I want it to just loop and flow. Why is it doing this? Well, if we look at our UV map here, and let's stop that, and look at those faces that we applied this to, right there, see how they line up in different directions? Even though visually they're all one continuous loop, in the UV editor, they are some going vertically, some going horizontally, and they're not really connected. What that means is as the texture, when it's looping, it's just kind of panning straight up and down, like just vertically up and down right here. As it's going through, some of the stripes, these ones, the texture is going to go down along the length of it. Then these ones, it's going to go along the width of it. That's not what we want. How do we get it to go in a cycle? Well, we just have to redo the UVs on this section. We want to reapply it to these faces. So let's re-UV these. I'm going to take these. I'm just going to go to UVs, and I'm going to do a planar UV. This is going to be a very flat UV. It's just going to connect them in one loop right there. Next, I need to cut them. So right now, this created a loop in the UVs right here, UV shell. So this is the UVs that we're now dealing with. And it looks flat, but essentially it's connected them all into a donut shape right there. So what I need to do is I need to cut that donut, or it's more like a piece of paper. It's like taking a piece of paper and rolling it like this, and they're all connected. It's one solid piece. So I need to add a cut, a seam, and lay it out flat. So to do that, I'm going to select this edge right here, and I'm just going to go into my UV toolkit right here, and I'm just going to go to cut, so cut right there. Then I'm going to take this UV shell, and I'm going to, where is it, right here? Unfold it right there. And that's the unfold tool. I want the unfold option right here. There we go. So there is our strip now laid out. Now you'll notice it's kind of at a weird angle. So I'm going to just align it here. And let's see, I always forget which one it is. I'm just going to orient them like that. So now it's going to line up with the world here. I can now just take this, line this up right there. Just lay that out. And now we've got a strip, and it goes all the way across, all the way around in a perfect loop. So now I've got this stripe that's just cycling through. So essentially what I did is I know that my texture is going to go from top to bottom in my UV editor. So I just took those faces and redid the UVs so they go from top to bottom along that stripe. Done. So we now have that going through. Nice and simple. Now, if I wanted to just get a little bit more creative, let's see if this is going to ruin things. I'm going to take those faces, I'm just going to extrude them. Let's just push them up a little bit here. Okay, I think am I going to be fine? Yeah. Okay, usually you'd want to do this before you start modeling. So now I've got this just indented. So we've got like this power channel going through this box now. And then you'll notice that we've got that sharp edge. If I wanted to kind of create the illusion that it's just a little bit more, what would be the right word? A little softer. I can take those, go to Mesh Display, Soften Edge. And now you'll notice that there's no hard edge there anymore. It just kind of masks it. So now we've got this power channel going through, but no like sharp razor edge there. So there we go. We've got a little power box right there. Why did the edges move in such a way to give some curvature? Did you move them on the normal axis or something? I softened the normals. So softening normals in Maya essentially makes it so that edges just don't show up. The lighting becomes a smooth transition over them. A good example of this is a polygon sphere. A polygon sphere, by default, looks nice and smooth. We can see that. Ooh, nice and smooth. Even if I lower the detail here, it looks nice and smooth. But it's actually not smooth. And for some reason, why am I not able to type in here? My keyboard sticking? Okay. Let me double check something here. I think I have a key that's sticking. Okay. So I'm just going to lower this down here manually. Okay. So we go down here. Now you'll see that it's very sharp. The reason that it looks sharp is that the normal angle has reached a point where Maya determines, okay, it should look sharp now. It should have a hard edge. But I can manually determine that as well. So under mesh display, if I just select soften edge, we now have a sphere that has a lot less detail. But if we look at this face, it's perfectly smooth. There's no sharp edges there. Similarly, if I take a cube is very sharp edges right there. If I take that and soften those edges right there, we get this. Now, the problem here is you can see that we can't really see that sharp edge, but the cube is such a high degree of change there that it can't render properly because of it. And this is something that you'll notice on certain rigs. Sometimes you'll open it up and there's these like black pockets on the rig that the lighting just feels weird. Essentially, the normals aren't working correctly. So to solve this, normally what you just do is either harden the normals. So for example, if I take this sphere, mesh display, harden edge, we will get this hard line between each face. Or you can go in and let's actually take this, and I'm just going to extrude it slightly. Something like this. I can take this and I'm going to go to mesh display, soften harden edges. And this will allow you to set an angle at which it's going to be soft, and after that it's going to be hard. So anything below a 30-degree angle is going to be a soft edge. So if I do this here, let's see if I got any soft edges. I don't think so. So this is still too much of an angle. Let's try that again. So mesh tools, I'm going to go under soften harden, and let's set that to a 40, or let's say a 50-degree angle. Apply. There you go. See how that edge is now soft there, but the rest is still hard. Essentially, this angle was shallow enough that it's going to apply a soft edge to it. So that's basically it. So it's really just an illusion. It doesn't change the geometry in any way. It's just visual trickery. Wasn't this how you get a nice sphere from a cube that you can deform without having face issues? No. So that way of doing it is by softening the spheres or going into a high tessellation mode. So if I take this and hit 3 on the keyboard, this takes the cube and actually just smooths it out, takes all the detail and smooths it down. So it's just a different way of approaching it. Now with this way, to increase the resolution, you can hit page up and page down and then get a really nice smooth object. If I was to do that with this and hit 3, I would get this object here, which doesn't quite look as good. Not really what I'm looking for. Let's see. What's the difference between extruding like you do and extruding with the shift key? I believe it's the same thing. So if I hold down shift and extrude, it's the exact same thing. This is just faster. I'm just used to not having this. Nowadays in Maya, if you just hold down shift, you can just boop, extrude right there. And it's really super quick and easy. So I can just kind of extrude, extrude, extrude just like that and build something super quick. I just keep forgetting that that exists because when I used to use Maya, way back when I started learning it, that was not a thing. But nowadays it's so quick. Like I just build a cannon there or some weird little foot something. So yeah, you could just do that, whichever one you prefer. So going back to the stripe here, at this point we've created our power circuit. Great. But we just did this on a cube. A cube is pretty simple. What if we need to make this go across a 3D surface that isn't just a polygon cube and is a little bit more complex. So let's bring in a character here. So we're going to get rid of our poor little cube. Goodbye, cube. And I'm just going to reference in. Let's do Jules since we already have him here. So, okay, yeah. That sums up Maya. I had a feeling that something was crashing when I couldn't type anything. So, that's fine. Yeah, it's 2023. It's really nice. So far, it's very similar to the other 2022, but I do like it. So let's recover that just so we don't have to reset up our texture, which honestly wouldn't take very long. So we've got this here. Let's double check our texture. Is it in here? Yeah, perfect. So with this in place, let's say I want, let's see, what do I want to do? Let's do a basic element here. I'm not going to go super fancy with this, but let's say I want to, I'm trying to think what would be a fun demo. Let's say I want to have a piece of technology across his eye right here, and it has a pulse of energy that goes vroom, vroom, across right there. It's like a Borg implant if you've watched Star Trek. I want to do something like that. So it's going to go across, and maybe we, like, this is going to be super basic here, but you could do like wires and whatnot and have them go across the wires, which would be really cool. But I want to go across the surface itself. How do I do that? I don't really want to change his UVs. So for example, if I go on the character here and make it selectable, I don't want to change his geometry because he is rigged. I also don't want to really affect his UVs because that's just going to be more work for me. And maybe the UVs just don't line up with what I want. Maybe I want like a sharp, like a curve here that then curves through the eye right around there, around that corner. How do I do that? Well, what I can do is just turn, so I selected the geometry here, and I'm going to hit this button right here. This is the Make Selected Object Live. A live object is something that you can draw over top of, which is really cool. So with this in place, what I can now do is I can use a bunch of different tools. I could use curve tools. I could use the quad draw tool to create a new piece of geometry that follows his face. For this, I'm just going to use the quad draw tool. So I'm going to go into my modeling toolkit, activate the quad draw. You can also find it under mesh tools right here. And I'm just going to create a piece of geometry that follows along right here. And let's have it curl under the eye a little bit, maybe around here. Okay, so I can now just fill this in right there. Maybe add a little bit more detail in certain areas. If you're interested in on how to use the quad draw tool, if you just go to the tool settings, it'll have all the different techniques you can use for that. It's really cool. So we've got this piece of geometry here. Now I'm just double checking, making sure it's got enough detail that I want there. I think it's good. We can spend time and make something even more fancy and complex right there. And you know what? Just for the sake of it, let's actually have it go down at an angle here too. Just for the sake of it. Okay. Now actually I'm going to make sure my topology is nice here. So if that's going to be good there. actually, yeah. And then just shape this a little bit more. So I wanted that angle right there. It's just going to make things a little easier. And then shape it to what I need. And there we go. So we've got this weird tattoo thing. Now I can just take that and I'm going to extrude it. So I'm just going to take all of these faces, extrude, and just pull them out ever so slightly. So we get some depth in here. Now you could keep it flat, you could do whatever you want. I want a little bit of depth there. And let's add just a little bit more. You can see it's kind of cutting through the cheek there. So in that case, what I can do is either add more detail in that section or just pull it out a little bit more. Either is good. So we're just going to go a little further here. Something like that. Okay. So we've got this implant there. Now, this won't mess with deformations? Nope. So what we're going to do here, let's say we've got this in place and I want it to follow the head, but I also want to deform with the head. What I can do now is take this object, and let's turn off our live object so I can select the skin again. I'm going to take this and I'm going to add a deformer, and I'm going to add a wrap deformer. Wrap. So what a wrap deformer will do is take this new piece of geometry and constrain it to the head and lock it to the head. Additionally, if I move his facial controls, we now have that following along. So it's actually a part of his face. It's almost like we've attached it onto the face, like a Borg implant. So it's in addition to the character, not with the character. Yeah, it's its own piece of geometry. So I could actually move this and you can see it's actually separate. I just placed it over top and used the face geometry as a kind of to build off of it instead of just making it from scratch. So with that, we've got that in place. I can now apply the material onto there that we already had. So let's do that right here. So not the graph editor, don't need that. I'm going to take this and just apply that Lambert onto the object here. And you'll notice, yeah, that's not right. Nope. The reason for that is that the UVs are a mess. You can see that's the UVs. That's not really good. So I need to UV this and lay it out. To do this, I'm just going to, once again, take that UV planar. This is just going to create a very basic UV. And now I need to cut the UV and kind of splay it out. So to do this, let's just add a little bit more detail here before we do that. So we just have a little bit more of an implant feeling. What I'm going to do is select all the faces here. Let's make sure I didn't select through it. Okay. And then I'm going to extrude and offset this in slightly, like so. And then let's take this edge loop right here, extrude that out. Now we might have to redo our wrap. Let's actually double check that. Okay, it worked. So I'm actually going to redo our wrap anyway. I'm going to take this, I'm going to delete the history of it just so it's nice and clean. And then I'm going to rewrap it to the head. It's always good to delete your history before you start getting too complex into things. There we go. So now we've got this implant here, but I want this inner channel to have that pulsing wave in there. So I'm going to select these faces here inside this channel. make sure I don't have anything else selected. Good. And let's apply our material right there. And once again, it's still not looking too right. Why is that? Well, once again, our UVs haven't been created. So for this, I'm going to just do a planar UV on the whole thing. UV planar. And then I'm going to cut it. And this is my favorite way of doing quick UVs without having to do too much thinking about it. So essentially, I need to separate out this inner bit from the rest. So I'm going to just double click on this edge loop. And this is actually a good question. How do you select multiples like this? You skipped a few faces and it took everything in between. Let me actually show that. So if you need to select things in Maya, let's actually go into a regular mode here. There's a few different ways you can do it. I can just click and hold down Shift to add to the selection like that, or remove from the selection. So Shift will toggle. Control plus Shift will only add. So even if I click on other faces, I'm clicking right now, it's not going to deselect anything. If you hold down Control, that will only deselect things. So if I need to deselect anything, I can just do that. Doop, done. Now with that, there's a few other selection tools you can use, or selection shortcuts you can use. The first is if you click on a face and then double click on the face right next to it, it's going to select the entire edge loop all around there. So like that, it just selected all the way around, right through, all the way. If I select, let's say this face here and then this one here, double click while holding down Shift, again, it'll select the whole edge loop. If you select one face like this one, and then I double click while holding down Shift to another face over here, it'll select all the faces in between them. So I can hold down Shift, select this one, hold down Shift, double click here, it'll select all the ones in between, double click, and then I can just add those. So you can quickly select things very easily with that. So for example, I need to select all the edges around here. So this edge loop right here. So I'm just going to double click on this edge and it's going to select the entire edge loop right around up until this corner. And I can select that, go down, and then select this one right here. So I've got the entire edge loop already selected right there. From there, go into my UV editor right here, and I'm just going to cut that. So cut right there. Now I'm also going to add a cut on, I don't have to, but just for the sake of cleanliness in my UVs, I'm going to cut this edge as well, all the way through. The big reason being the back face is against his body. We're never going to really see it anyway. So I'd rather just have that in there and cut. So if I do add like a mechanical texture to anything else, it's not messed up. Okay. There we go. Let's cut that. Now the shortcut for cutting is Shift X. I always forget about that. And that should be good enough. If I wanted to, let's see. I'm trying to think how I want to clean this up a little bit. Let's take these corners here. I'm trying to imagine this like a cardboard box, essentially. I've got this outer rim here. So this whole area right here, here, and then the top right there. This is all one solid piece right now. But if I'm trying to lay it out perfectly flat, it would be easier to do if I cut the corners here, right there, there, and then down here. That'll just allow me to lay it out even flatter with less distortion. I don't have to, but I'm going to do that anyway, just because. Okay. So we've cut all of that out. Let's take our pieces here, and I'm just going to lay them out so we can see each one. So we've got all of our pieces here, and it looks like I missed a cut somewhere. Looks like I extruded a face right there. Didn't want to do that. So if you ever do that, it's pretty easy to fix. Just delete that, and I'm going to select those two edges and bridge them together. Now the shortcut I'm using here is I'm always holding out Shift and then right clicking. That gives me my modeling tools and makes it a little easier to just get everything through there a little bit easier. Okay. So I think I've got everything there. Let's lay that out again. Yeah, now we've got that separate piece. Okay. So for the outside edges, so I'm going to select my UV shells. So there's our outside edge right here. And then this is our back face right there. I'm just going to take both of these and I'm just going to unfold them. Just like that. And then let's orient them just so that they're straight. Like so. This is good enough. I don't have to worry about that. There's no textures that I'm really putting on there, but there you go. Now for this one's going to be important because this is where we have our texture that is pulsating through. Now, if you look at it right now, it's kind of doing it, but it's going through this weird kind of ribbon effect. So first, let's unfold this. Boop, right there. That should be a little flatter, a little bit better. And it looks not bad, but it's not really flowing along the edges the way I would want it to. In order for that to happen, what we need to do is take this squiggle pattern and straighten it out. Keep in mind, the texture is going from top to bottom in the UVs. So if you kind of imagine how it's going through here, it's going through here, and it's just like a scan line going down. Down, down, down. And once it reaches this point, it's not kind of going around the corner, it's just hitting it flat there. So you can see right there, that whole stripe is just going right across that whole section there. So what I can do is take my UVs here, and I'm going to straighten them out. So you don't have to be super careful about this depending on how you set this up. But I'm just going to take my UVs right here and just going to start straightening them out here. So a little bit like that. Let's do a little bit of soft select right here. Rotate that. And you can see I'm doing it very roughly here. I'm not trying to be super precise with this because I'm going to have a tool here in just a second that's going to help me clean this up. Right now, this is mostly just trying to line things up here. So let's actually separate this out a little bit more. Bip, bip. There we go. Now we're getting there. So something like that. Now, to straighten this out, I can just take all of these UVs here, and I'm going to just align them to the right here. Take these ones, align them to the left, like that. So that's straightened them out pretty well, but they're kind of messy still. So at this point, I can optimize it a little bit. And now it's straighter, but still getting there. And then from here, I can once again just kind of straighten it out a little bit more. It takes a little bit. It's not like one button done. There are different tools you could use, and it depends on how picky you want to be about it, honestly. But this should be pretty good. Something like this is essentially the vertical line. Now I'm going to take this UV shell and I'm just going to lay it out, boop, so that it's just straight there from 0 to 1. And now as I pulse through, you'll notice that it goes and follows the curvature of the object. Right here, it's curving around there. So now I've got that pulse going through along the curve. And this is where you would have like a spiral pattern around the arm. As long as you straighten that UV, who cares what the text or the material, sorry, the object is doing. It could be a spiral pattern. It could be zigzagging back and forth, like just a W shape here. But if you straighten that UV, it's going to follow the path. So you can have a zigzag going right through, and it's just fine. Now, with this, let's actually soften harden our edges because it's kind of getting a little weird there. So mesh display, soften harden. There we go. Now we've got that. There we go. And you can do all sorts of other things with this now. Like, keep in mind, like, this is a very basic thing. We could apply this to, like I said, a spiral pattern. We could inset this in clothing. So down the sleeve, you have this pulse going through there. We could have this on a tube. So if you have a cylinder, like an example, a power cable like stuck to his head and then it sticks out and then into his neck or something, you could have an energy pulse going through that tube. Same way. It's just making sure your UVs are clean. So with this in place, what I can now do is play with my effect. So essentially go into my hypershade here. Let's turn off our selection highlighting. And I can just do all sorts of different things. So I could add a little noise in here. Let's add some V-wave in here. Let's see, why is it not applying? Okay, let's actually, okay, see what's going on here. There we go, now it applied. Just had to refresh there. So now I've got this kind of wave pattern and it's less of an energy pulse and we've got more of this kind of weird speckled pattern. And it's almost like it's pushing some like gunk through it. Maybe it's like a lava field in there. And hey, maybe we want it to be lava. So you can change the color. So instead of black and white, we can go yellow in there. And now we've got this going through. You can play around with these things and get all sorts of effects. Not only that, but you don't have to stick with just having this attached to the color. So what we can do now is also take that ramp and attach it, for example, into the ambient color. And now you'll notice that the white is much brighter in there. And we get this kind of pulse. If I take out the color here, let's just do that. I can now have this be, let's say, let's go with a dark red here, like that. And because the ramp is going into the ambient color is how pure the color is. How much does it get affected by lighting? Now we're going to have this pulse of red that goes through, and it's just kind of adding more pure color in there. Which means that we can now take this Lambert here and add another color. So maybe, let's see, what do I want to do here? Let's try a checker pattern. Yeah, it's not going to really work too well here. I could do another ramp. Let's do a ramp here. So here we're going to have another ramp, and this time it's not going to be animated. I can just set it to be whatever I want. So I could have it maybe start off red at the top. We'll go into maybe a grayer color down here before ending in, let's see, maybe blue, something like that. So it's almost like it's cooling down like that. So it's like a temperature gauge, but it's still got that color pulse going through because I'm attaching it to the ambient color. that's just one other thing we can do. I could attach this into the transparency. So let's take it out of there. And instead, we're going to attach it into transparency. Now, that section here, it's not going to look great, but we get this kind of wave through here. And this would be really cool. You can see the skin color underneath if you wanted to create veins that kind of like glow and pulse. It's almost like the arm is normal and you get boo-doo, and then boo-doo, where the veins just kind of go and then disappear back into the skin and disappear back into the skin. You can do all sorts of things like that with this technique. Now, I'm not going to show all of it because we'd be here all day, but it's essentially just knowing how textures apply and being able to animate the 2D texture node, the place 2D. And once again, I could rotate this 90 degrees here. And now what's going to happen is now that pulse is going to go from left to right along this. Instead of going up and down, it's going this way. And you can see it kind of resets there. But we could do something like that. Or we could have it diagonally. We could have a little bit of noise in here. Like that. So now we get this effect. That's really cool. So now we could create like a visor, a tech visor that's across the eyes, and there's just this like pattern to it. This ripple effect right in there.